Hello, 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 my beauties. Welcome back for the first time. Now, this is a very extra special episode, not only because this is being recorded with my VTuber model, but also it's being recorded live, and I shall be clipping it later, whilst also keeping the thing up and available, the original stream, which was a watch along. Which, yeah, you can go back to at any time. If you rent the movie, have it on Blu ray for some reason. Maybe you found it in the bargain bin in the future. Who could say? But, yes, for any reason you want to watch that, head on over to Solid Passion Gaming and just search up Morbius. There'll be a playlist for various watch longs that you can find it under. It will be the first of them. Yes, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that good YouTube stuff. Those watching this live as well, be sure to do that. Even if you're on Twitch, head on over. Speaking of, I multi-stream, but yeah. Anyhow, this is already getting away from me. As you can probably see, based on the thumbnail I'll make for this, I have no idea what to be at this time. We're going to try and have a brief, concise, hopefully, review of Morbius. A Marvel Legend is Born. Had a pretty good poster to begin with, but oh boy, oh boy. So let's just hyper spoiler alerts here. I'm just gonna give a brief run through the chain events we get, and then what's it go over like my thoughts on some of the characters and the concept in the story, and my thoughts overall. Anyhow, real briefly, we start off with Jared Leto just going out himself with a crippling disease to capture some vampire bats. I believe in Africa, Brazil, something. I missed that part trying to turn off the subtitles, and I'm not going back to check. Seems dangerous and reckless, but it also does kind of, establish the character. He does willingly turn himself into a human, what's a test subject, after immediately getting successful trial. Like, immediately. Anywho, then we have a flashback that, to be honest, to build up the two characters a little bit more, I probably would have put it before all of this, you know? Have that be just like a cold open in the childhood and have it be a bit longer to, better establish these characters and the dynamics. Some reason, like, the weirdest thing I will say about this is some reason Michael Morbius just gets to name the other character, Milo. He does that to everyone next to his bed, apparently just after the original kid that was there moved on. But, like, he does have, Loxus Crown, I want to say his name is. He does have a proper name, and nobody refers him to that until the very end. And it's like, people who should not be referring to him like that still refer to him as Milo, and it's weird. And it is truly baffling. Truly, truly baffling. Anyhow, setting up them in the flashbacks, him going on to be a doctor after saving Milo's life. Even I'm referring to him as that. Anywho. And Milo gets violent with some bullies who just have the blackest of hearts. And it's like, just can I just ask screenwriters just not to put that in? It just enables them, Enables people like that to keep doing their thing, thinking, yeah, some people are like this. I swear, I've never met someone that bad, and this is someone who got like bullied by like the entire younger class than me, just because like they were informed that I had Asperger's, and it was like, well, that's great. Even I don't see that. Like, who goes up to a building where they know there's just a bunch of terminally or like chronically ill children who, for all likelihood, may never find a cure to the conditions, and just laughs at them and calls them freaks? It's so baffling. It's just that is one of the most baffling parts of the film, and that's saying something given, Morbius, the living vampire. So, anyhow, then we just get some, establishing shots, not shots, but, character scenes, setting everybody up, running experiments, back and forths. one of the weakest aspects of this film, I would say, is like, again, I said this before. This whole film could have used an extra half hour just for like character work to set up like relationship dynamics and help like progress them as the film goes. It, that is like by far the weakest part of this when it comes to the actual comic book sci-fi stuff. That's fairly decent. It's a bit silly at times. Again, air quotes living vampire. If you go with the expectation of something silly, you have a good time with this. Spoiler alerts. But yeah, little itch of the ear. Anywho, we get all that set up. Then we're on a ship. Again, immediately successful, and then instead of studying this to make sure we'll be fine for like hours on end and won't deteriorate later, it's like, okay, let's shoot this into my spine straight away. As you could expect, it does not work out well, but not for the reasons you normally associate for human trials that are done recklessly. Instead of killing Morbius, it turns him into the living vampire. And then it's like the worst henchmen you could ever imagine, because like these aren't hired by the bad guy, to attack Michael Morbius or anything. They're there to guard him, to make sure he's safe on this ship. And instead, it's like, oh, something's going on with her boss. I better like unload my entire clip of ammunition into him. Hopefully that will fix the problem. And they all keep doing this, and it's baffling. It's truly baffling that the hired help expected to get away with this, never be hired again, and not have like hits put out on them for like a poor performance, for killing the person they were there to protect. I don't understand that for the life of me. Having a little sip of coffee, you get to live with that because I can't edit these things out. Well, I think maybe in the highlight thing of YouTube, but that's also not YouTube, Twitch. So I'll be pulling this from. That's a lot of work. I'd rather just like pull the big section and then upload it. Easier for my ADHD to manage, ADHD brain to manage. Anyhow, baffling decision there. Doesn't work out for them. Actually, does lead to some pretty cool horror action stuff. Not gonna lie, I feel like turning oh god, yeah, this is a cliche from the comic book movies. Villain immediately starts off as like just bad guy with the hero's powers. That is like a theme that's been going on. I will get into Matt Smith because I do love him. Maybe I don't know if they were planning and hopeful about the future. They probably should have saved him for a future film. You know, and kept it to like a more human antagonist to keep these cool scenes up. That would have been neat. Anywho, doesn't go well. The love interest doctor gets knocked unconscious during this very cool action scene. It's very horror-esque. We love good lighting and mood setting there. CGI could have done with being a bit better, just a little bit. Just a little bit. Oh well. But for the most part, like just in terms of just pure action quality, regardless of like CGI, there's some pretty cool stuff there. And it is like hard rated between like all the vampire jumping, going for the throat, clawing the stomach. There was just one that got a good laugh out of me where it's like, what's it? God was calling to report what was happening to whoever might still be alive, and Morbius is just like, nope, with claws just straight across his throat. It's like, dang, I wish I could have seen this in Venom, in either of the Venom films. That would have been lovely. I'm thinking back to like Carnage escaping from prison and how like PG that was. Well, PG-13 compared to like what they were able to do with this. It seems like they really should have made that one R-rated. Because again, a lot of the action bits are the best thing in this movie. I will actually say that the action, for the most part, other than I think like the end fight scene, which is admittedly pretty weak, pretty good. Anywho, we get to there, calls in the ship, jumps in, expecting to be just fine swimming after being like anemic for all his life, just on crutches. Sure, why not? Then go over some, like, some of the hard sci-fi stuff of just like detailing, examining his condition, which then serves as an in-way for Milo to discover what's happening and sip a dose for himself to then become the villain of the film with the same powers as the protagonist. Anyhow, he's just chilling there at that point and then has to make a run for it after a nurse gets away. Uh, Nurse at the hospital he's working at gets killed, thinking, oh no, I blacked out again, which is how the first action scene came about, with him blacked out because of the transformation. And it's like, but as we later come to find out, which, again, it's not the biggest surprise, it does get reviewed a few minutes later, but it was something I copped straight away. What's it? It was, in fact, Milo, because he was wearing an appropriate jacket for, like, what we see the person doing it, killing the nurse. Whereas, Morbius was in this, like, I can only describe as a Renaissance shirt, a billowy Renaissance shirt. Which honestly is a nice little bit of detail, because, like, between the vampire powers and hopping in and out of the shower, never directly seeing the person's face, and them having a similar hair color, and then keeping, like, the reveal at a distance, you could easily mistake it for Morbius. Anywho, he then tries to run from police. It, for some reason, doesn't go well. You think he'd just jump. He figures out he can fly later in the film, but yeah, again, they could have done with a lot of character work in various moments. This next few sections do seem to, like, drastically fly by. Anyhow, some reason just gets freaked out. The cop there, I don't know if he's superpowered or whatnot. They get a decent amount of screen time, despite not adding a ton to the film. So, oh, I forgot I wanted to call out, whoops, donation thing. But let's put that away for now. Let's put that away. It's out there. I want you to see the cane now. Let's hit that transition. Rainbow effects, delightful. Anywho. Oh, speaking of canes, we'll cover that in a moment. Now, gets captured, and it's like, tell us what's going on here. It's like, I wish I could tell you, but I just don't know. And it's just like, I feel like you can explain, like, you did experiments on yourself, and for the first killings on the ship, you blacked out entirely. I don't think that would be like a full exoneration, but that would surely follow under manslaughter to a certain extent. Especially then with testimony from, the other doctor, where they were just opening fire all willy-nilly after they saw, like, the state he was in, which then provokes you, especially in a blacked out state. I feel like that's reasonably easy to communicate. Of course, like, this also does bring a lot of guilt to Morbius, because he thought, oh god, I blacked out again and killed, the nurse. But no, we then discover, as Milo comes in to give him some blood and try and egg him on into being a greater vampire, give in to his dark side. He leaves his signature cane in Morbius' cell and walks away without it, which is the reveal for a pretty fun reveal, Matt Smith is a delight in this. I don't know how much of it was intentional, but honestly, he made me laugh out loud multiple times, just bringing his awkward energy to this deranged vampire serial killer. Like, it was a lot of fun to watch that character. That's all I can say. I laughed out multiple times at his antics. Oh my god. Oh my god, there's just a moment with him in the subway just dancing after beating some cops. Oh my god, that alone made this worth it. I didn't have the best day going into this, Just a few stressful moments and trying to get ADHD medication, which is going to be like a whole thing. I was really hoping previously being diagnosed would make the process, like, easier to go in and get a prescription, but nope. But this really did improve my day overall. Anyhow, we get that scene. He kills someone just out in the open and gets away with it. Like, the one newsstand left in, like, I assume New York City. Which, honestly, baffling that he could get away with that, but he does call out, like, hey, I'm Matt Smith. No one thinks I'm that harmful, right? I'm harmless. Literally rips the guy's throat out, so he, he's not wrong. I can't fault him that. Oh god, oh god. Anyhow, at this point, Morbius has figured all this out, has broken out, and is confronting him. And we also get another little cool scene in facing the cops. What's it? Honestly, I just like it. It's really clever. Just ripping off a bit of the tile. Pretending to get arrested, then using his strength to rip off some of the wall tiling in the subway. And then attacking the one trying to handcuff him and using the tiling to like incapacitate the other one long enough for them to be dazed for him to do his shtick of just like ripping out their throats and whatnot to feast on them a little bit. And then it then brings the question if it was even necessary, because he then does beat up 4 cops in just remarkable alarming speed. I will say they get away with this as well by adding some smoke effects to them. It makes no sense why they have this, but I don't know. I'm a sucker for it. I kind of like it stylistically, so I'm there. I'd say that would be the biggest breaker for the film for you if you can get on board with A, how silly it is, and B, the style choices it makes. If you can just watching by the trailer and some of the stuff, and you think, oh, that looks kind of cool, and I can get on board with a silly film like this, it's like, you'll probably have a good time. You go into expecting it to be a silly film. It will be fine for you. Anyway, Morbius finds out he can fly. Some other stuff, threatens some people making fake money to steal the lab, and it's like, there's some like weirdly dubbed over lines, and this even like the trailer of like the Venom, and it's like, then him like jumping back, that was edited out. I feel like that was one of the things that suffered the worst from like this originally supposed to coming out in like 2020 and then got delayed for like 2 years because of pandemic, and then like 2 films it was supposed to lead into then were released after the fact. So yeah, there's a few things that were cut out. There's also Michael Keaton for a good bit. Like, he's just thrown in at the end to try and set things up. I have no idea if that will pan out. Then again, I don't know what the budget of this film is. It made like a 165 back of the box office, but they also had that phenomenally bad re-release of $85,000. That's like, oh no. So that probably hurt its profitability, but at the same time, I feel like it happened early on enough. Actually, they did do a few trailer pushes, but then they realized, far enough out, they would delay it and then delay it again indefinitely until it just kind of eventually released. But they didn't have a big, as far as I was aware, media push for it. But then again, I had premium on for that by that point, so maybe they did. I don't know. Maybe the pandemic was just able to save them the bulk of the advertising costs and just barely made this film profitable. I mean, I certainly contribute to that this evening, renting a copy. Anywho, just a lot of stuff at this point that I can really skip over, which again, probably should have had stronger character work in this movie. What's it? Moving on from there, we do kind of get into the weaker finality at this point. What's it? Matt Smith just being an absolute delight to watch, being this manic vampire serial killer who's just like living life to the fullest for the first time, having free reign and mobility. He brings a lot of energy, a lot of his awkward energy that he normally does to his projects into this serial killer. Completely unchanged and alterated at all. It really does feel like a lot of the same energy he brought as the Doctor. In the more like looser moments, more fun, silly moments. And honestly, it surprisingly works as in this film. Again, I don't know if it was intentional, but it made me laugh the hardest out of anything in this. It made me incredibly happy, so Mm. Anywho, rushing to the anticlimax, a father figure who could have used more establishing, the connection between Morbius and what's it, Milo. Even in this, it refers to as Milo. That's not the actual character's name. Jeez. Oh well. Just a strong emphasis there. He's like, by this point now, like he's figured out what's going on with Milo and what he's doing, and they really have a conversation about like oh, Morbius being the favorite and me just being like pitied and then feared as othered. Uh, I just don't feel it was like build up to that at all. The groundwork wasn't laid out. I'm not fully aware of what the relationship is between these people. Based on the interactions, all it is like, hey, I'll look after you as a kid, and hey, I'll look after you as an adult. Help you with your conditions. But it's like, I need more than that. No, I also should say Milo was helping to fund the stuff. He's rich, so. But yeah. Where was I? Yeah, moving on from there, the girlfriend is killed, but spoiler alerts. Skip a few seconds, hit the thing once or twice. It gets turned into a vampire, which is established at the end, but Morbius seems unaware, so we don't. I have no idea what's going to come of that later. I I mean, weirder things have happened than this thing getting a sequel, so I don't know. Maybe. They do have a pretty baked in excuse of the pandemic constantly stopping and starting the hype for this and allowing like two other films that contractually had to like come out at certain points to set up for like other films. Which Carnage had to come out before Spider-Man, and Spider-Man had to come out at a certain date according to Disney, so that those went by. Which then this was supposed to hype up those two a little bit and lead into it a little bit and kind of hint at the Sinister Six. So it's a reasonable excuse they may try and get away with, but I don't know. Anywho, she gets kind of fridged a little bit, and it's again, I could have used more establishing of the relationship, more interactions between them to actually make me feel something. They actually do go for like the traditional vampire thing, which I don't know if that was actual possible for Morbius. Again, he's like referred to as a living vampire because he has a lot of traits you would associate with a vampire due to like mutant genes that he's instilled to himself, and spicing up vampire bat stuff, which again turning you into a smoke monster makes no sense. Hello. Oh wait. No. Oh no. We're just doing a review right now. Blank. Doing a review. I'm doing this live, so he's there. Don't worry. And don't worry, this is all up on YouTube, so you can sync up and watch the film at any time. Anywho, back to the review. Just kind of gets fridged a little bit, and Morbius is supposed to be, there we are, living vampire. All the characteristics you would assume with a vampire, but he's still a living organism. He's still alive, whereas an actual vampire is like referred to as an undead creature. Things like crosses in holy water and sunlight do not hurt Morbius. So, yeah, kind of. I'm just doing the review. Yeah. Sorry, just doing a review of the clip and chip. Yeah, I'm just now that there's actual chat going. Let me just Where was it? Where was it? Let's get this on up. So you can see what I'm referring to. There, part of the review now. Yay. Anywho. But they go for the traditional approach of reviving vampire. What's it? The person drinking a bit of vampire's blood, and then the vampire drinking a bit of their blood, thus initiating them as newborn. It's an adaptation, so I guess they can go with it. And I'm not the biggest into the Marvel lore. I know bits about it. Bits of the even deep stuff, but like not everything. So maybe it's canon. I don't know. And yeah, there's some cool stuff going on at the fight scene, like a cool shot with just like Matt Smith character just falling back to have a fight in the air with Morbius. But like, honestly, I feel like Milo does more damage to himself than actual Morbius. But yeah, and there's some cool stuff going on between them as well. It's kind of neat. Anyhow, they end up in the sewers. Morbius looks down and out for the count before he lets out a big, silly roar. Fuck. And summons a wave of bats. Just an entire colony of bats around him that he then has the ability to control. And I will stress, it is incredibly silly, but I'm here for it. I love that. I can't help but love that. As you can tell, based on this VTuber model, I like bats, you know? I like them. And just being able to control an army of them just seems like a lot of fun. And it ends up proving effective, so who am I to judge? Again, silly, but made me ever so happy to watch. Now. And yeah, they set up like, this here's the substance that is like not good for bats and is like lethal to humans. I'm just gonna jab this into his heart and hopefully this will work out. I I assume it does. He does appear to be dead but after that, but yeah. And again, I think I called this out in the movie. Like if they had established like the disease they were suffering from would also cause mental deterioration that would cause them to behave more erratically and become more unstable as time progressed, and like the serum that gives them the vampire strength only fixes them physically. It doesn't repair whatever damage has been done to them because of this mentally, up in the brain. Then and also just like living with this condition as well, the actual trauma that can affect your development as a person. I Yes, indeed, I do love bats playing. uh, if they had established that, and by the time he got this, he was just like keeping it to doing his best to keep together, but he was pretty far gone, pretty like erratic, and was slightly prone to outbursts, but was trying to keep himself in check. But then with the powers became so drunk on those powers that he just mixing that with his state just turned into a violent serial killer. Whereas like Morbius was able to like always experimenting himself and keeping close eye on his health, doing everything he possibly could, was just in a better state, then that could have worked. And also, kept the again, they try for a sympathetic death. That could have worked as well if they had established all of that. But they don't. It's just like a physical disease, and it just seems like Milo's a bit of a jerk, apparently. But they didn't really establish that beforehand. He just gets vampire powers and is a serial killer. If they had just done that, I feel like this film probably would have been a lot better received. Again, extra half hour to work on a lot of character stuff probably would have been a far greater film. But also funny cuts because of like delays and like the two films it was supposed to lead into coming out before it. So yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on like the overall film. In terms of like the plot structure and like critiquing that. In terms of character work and actors, what they did. Milo, what's it? No, not Matt Smith and Jared Leto both bring like awkward charm to both of the representative characters, Morbius and again Milo. Though I feel like they try to make Jared Leto just a little bit more charismatic, and it doesn't seem bad. My main thoughts on this film as a whole is it's not spectacular in a good sense or bad sense, so I'm pretty perplexed by je ne sais quoi. This having 70% on Rotten Tomatoes. There are things far worse than this that deserve way more hate. And I'm just baffled this seems to get pile dogged by a lot of the more established critics, while still also having like a 71% audience rating, which makes sense. Not to say they always have to perfectly align. Going super hard critical, yes, I believe there's a good bit to critique here, but not 17% or lower bad. At the lowest, this should be somewhere in the 20s, but like on average, I think it's what's it high mid to high 30s, maybe low to mid 40s at best in terms of critical response. But like, I don't know, man. I had a fun time with it, going in with my expectations properly set. But yeah, I believe like for what it is, Matt Smith and Jared Leto certainly did a decent job. I don't believe anybody else, just looking at the rest of the cast here, had a bunch to work on. Hence, that extra half hour could have been pretty useful for everybody else. But again, for what they had, like I couldn't point to a bad actor in the cast who was like majorly phoning it in. You know, at least based on their performance, there might be some things I especially like the detectives, I feel like that's more of a script issue, than direction or acting. It's just like not a lot there for them there, which then questions what is it justified to have so much screen time of them? Which I'd say it's not, but that's not anyone on screen's fault. So, mm, 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 mm. But yeah, again, but there is a core flaw within this film, essential dilemma, like Morbius wondering like I can't cross this line, thinking like, oh, if I start eating blood, that means like I'll have to start killing people. But it's like, again, this is fairly common knowledge if you just do the briefest of researching into like blood donations. Like every time there's a big nationwide surge in the US or anywhere else, countless liters of blood expire and go bad because it's just way more than they need at one given time that they could ever possibly need to use, and thus like it expires before they can actually use it. You can't just put it in a freezer indefinitely. It eventually becomes unusable. It's more about like having steady, consistent donations, and like again, they say this a line that is absent from the film, that is in the trailer: the cure being worse than disease. Sodden. But like this vastly improves the physical conditions of people's lives, and the only trade-off is the requirement to drink blood, which I feel like if there was just like a stronger, more decent push for like blood donations, there would be more than enough A for every hospital like in every nation, but also B enough to also supply a steady food supply for like the vast minority of people with these severe chronic diseases that are in every other sense besides what this would be uncurable, that it would be sustainable to just up blood donations and feed them off of that. This does actually seem like a pretty decent cure for a lot of physical conditions, you know again, probably shouldn't be given out willy-nilly, and probably would need to be rules set up based off, apparently Morbius being able to turn his girlfriend. But like, again, this technically is a cure. There's definitely symptoms, but anyone with like nerve damage or like any other chronic condition that affects developments of the muscles, or the ability to process blood or anything like that, any number of physical things like that, this would cure them. But it's treated as like this inherently dangerous thing just because of the necessity for blood. But again, it feels like with just the percentage that exists out in the world who would A fall under the need for this, and B within those people actually want to do it, it's just such a small percentage of the population it would be sustainable to provide them blood. I just that and again, if this film had actually like tackled that subject, it would have been rather interesting, like compared to juxtapositioning like that serious debate over the logistics of being able to do that with just like one person, regardless of like whatever condition they are in, going mad with power and becoming serial killer. That's also causing like a moral and ethical debate about administering this cure to others, because you're never really sure when and if they could go mad with power and lash out. But that's also kind of true of everybody. So it's like that would be an interesting debate for this film to have had in it, but it doesn't. And I feel like that's the biggest thing wrong with it. It feels like so close to actually getting some interesting stuff there, really interesting stuff, not just like cool spectacle stuff with like the fights, the vampires, the smoke, the cool jacket with the purple lining. I just want to bonk Jared Leto on the back of the head to take. What's it? So close to actual interesting things of substance, such as that moral debate and character work, that it's just frustrating that it misses. But again, not 17% frustrating. I feel like it's just I said this before. I feel like some critics are like overly harsh on certain media properties that, have a bigger budget, and then there's a bigger marketing arm, and thus, a bigger audience because of that larger marketing arm, than a lot of, like, probably in terms of, like, character work at the very least, interactions and plotting, superior films. Just because, like, they couldn't advertise themselves to the extent that Morbius got to, even with the horrible time it had because of the pandemic. And are just, like, overly harsh on some of these films, like, more than they need to be. Not to say, like, this is an excellent film by any standards, but again, it's a silly film you can have a good time with. So, sad it doesn't. But yeah. I mean, that, and I think I said before, the special effects can be better. I believe that's all my thoughts on this film, so I believe that shall be the end of the review. And now we're gonna do the end for this review, YouTube video, and then I'm gonna end stream as well after that, so people watching live get to listen to this twice. Well, what's it? It is slightly different for a video, so let me pull this back up again. Where is it? Aha. Transition. Yeah, new PC fund. It'd be a huge help if you could donate to it. Reason I can't really edit stuff out too much is just this laptop bricks whenever I try and edit a video longer than like 60 seconds that I upload clips for on the Sod Passion Gaming. Anywho, yeah, that would be a huge help. And anyhow, for the general stuff, like, comment, share the video about the place, subscribe, hit the bell, all those things would be hugely helpful, and I'd dearly appreciate it. And I hope you enjoyed getting to watch me do a review with my VTuber model. Not something I do often. Now, yeah, I don't have to awkwardly vamp to end this, because of, I don't have to hit the je ne sais quoi stop recording button. So I'll just say, Tata Wiedersehen, until we meet again. Bye bye. Watch some of my other videos.